From a shakeup in the federal cabinet just a day into the start of the sitting, and Alberta moving to add mandatory citizenship markers to driver's licenses. Time now for tonight's politics panel. And joining us this evening, Kathy Kerr, freelance writer and editor, longtime Alberta print journalist, and Barry Morishita, former leader of the Alberta Party and a former mayor of Brooks. Good evening to you both. And let's begin with the big developments around federal transport and internal trade minister Chrystia Freeland. The news today, she is stepping down from cabinet, taking on a new role related to Ukraine. Kathy, what's to be made of the timing and the significance?
I think the timing is frankly a little past due. I think we've all been waiting to find out what she's going to do next. It was pretty obvious that being the transport minister and minister of internal trade was not really her wheelhouse. And basically she was ready to move on after not going ahead with the Liberal leadership. But the significance is, I think, pretty interesting. It does suggest that Canada wants a really major role in what happens next, not just in Ukraine, but in the European arena, which is becoming more and more fraught with danger and instability, thanks to the American backing down out of that arena. So I think Canada getting involved at this kind of level with this kind of talent is sending a message.
Barry, this is the second time Chrystia Freeland has resigned from cabinet. Given it was 9 months ago, she stepped down in a move that paved the way to former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau departing politics. What's your read on any sort of message potentially being sent this time around?
Well, I agree with Kathy. They had to keep the band together during the election. I think that was important. They wanted to see that everybody was together. There was unity on the Liberal side, and as you can see, that was a successful strategy. I think Chrystia Freeland was very uncomfortable in her role. I mean, I think even in the swearing-in ceremony, she didn't know really exactly like what she was doing. But I think she's kind of proven herself to be a good team player in that regard. And, I think her skill set does suit what's going on. There's going to be a lot of issues with NATO and the Ukraine, and both on a security front as well as the economics, the world economics right now. So obviously he does have some faith in her, and she's certainly well suited and has the skill set to provide that insight for Canada going forward.
Kathy, coming at the front end of the sitting, what kind of impact do you see this having on the Prime Minister as he engages a new dynamic across the aisle with Pierre Poilievre's return to Parliament?
I think it ticks a box for him. I mean, essentially now he just does a little brief shuffle of responsibilities from what she was responsible for, and just sets his tone. I'm ready to go now. It doesn't leave that sort of niggling question of what's going to happen to Chrystia Freeland. So it just smooths things out a little bit for him.
Barry, between the two sides of the aisle, what do you take away from the tone of Pierre Poilievre's return to Parliament after having won the federal by-election here in our province? And how much do you think the January leadership review lingers in the background for the Conservative leader?
Well, I think his tone is, as it starts out, is a little more pragmatic, and certainly I think he was as humble as I've ever seen Pierre Poilievre in the House. It'll be interesting to see, because the alignment on policy, and I think that Canadians are really looking for their federal government to provide some hope and some action going forward, and I think Pierre Poilievre has to be part of that. And so if he's to be successful in January, I think that's a big part. He's got to look more prime ministerial. He's got to look more attractive to Ontario and other areas of the country. So I would expect, hopefully, I would think the tone would stay the same. I think that's good for everybody. And for Pierre Poilievre, I think he has to stay on that track if he wants a good chance in January to continue to be the leader.
And Kathy, big focus of this fall sitting undoubtedly will be the anticipated federal budget whenever it comes to fruition. What's hinging on that, where the Carney government is concerned?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that the average Canadian is really looking for. One of them is obviously what is the government going to do about the cost of living, which is just running away at the moment, and that's the bread and butter issue. I think they're definitely going to be saying, well, all right, what are you going to do for us? I think everyone is also pretty concerned about the signaling that this is going to be an austerity budget, that there's going to be cuts. There's going to be cuts, obviously, to programs. You can't get replace the money that's going to be pouring into defense out of nowhere, out of thin air, without going so spectacularly into debt. He's told his ministers he wants serious belt tightening, and I think everybody is a bit concerned about that. That has an effect and a ripple down all over the country in terms of employment stats, in terms of everyday households. So I think that the question with that budget is how he is going to get it down to the average person, and how he's going to keep them from panicking.
Barry, that's really going to be a tale of the tape, isn't it, in how the Prime Minister continues the honeymoon with Canadian voters.
Yeah, well, I think the budget itself is exactly how they're going to really set the tone for both how the opposition treats them and how Canadians feel about Mark Carney going forward. Right now, there is a lot of hope. I think there's a lot of expectation coming out of the budget, but there are dark clouds, and it's going to be interesting to see how Carney manages this going through. He definitely has to create some savings. Otherwise, he's going to basically mangle his reputation as the manager and the banker and the economic genius that's going to move Canada forward. So it's going to be an interesting dance, and it does set the tone for the next election. And that's why I think the Conservatives have to be mindful about how far they go with this kind of whole, the three consonant tag they have going right now, because they can't be on both sides of the fence when it comes to how it directly affects Canadians and how their income is going to be supported and all of those types of things that the budget controls. So it's going to be a fascinating session, I think, particularly what comes out of the budget and how that's communicated both from the Liberals and from the Conservatives.
All right, time for us to take a bit of a break. But when we come back, the move to mandatory citizenship markers on provincial identification. More from our politics panel in a moment. Welcome back. In what the Smith government is hailing a Canadian first, Alberta moving to add citizenship information to all driver's licenses and ID cards.
The feds cannot provide us with one single source of data that tells us who's Canadian, who's not. It's going to be able to tell us, who our citizens are.
The Premier also says adding the notation will cut red tape, given several provincial programs require users to prove their citizenship status. New licenses will also include Alberta healthcare numbers. Barry, what's your read on the need for adding mandatory citizenship markers to provincial identification? Would it even be within the provincial government's jurisdiction to determine citizenship?
Well, there's a couple things. First, they're not the first in Canada to do it. They're just the fifth or sixth, and all the other five have quit doing it for whatever various reasons. I think it's a bit of a nothing burger. The voter fraud conversation circulates online quite a bit. I think that kind of answers her base on that, who are primarily responsible for it. I believe I read there has been 10 incidences in the last 6.5 million votes cast in Alberta in terms of voter fraud. So I really think it's a nothing burger. It's something else they serve up to, honestly, to deflect again. You don't see too many major announcements about healthcare and education, except with regards to the strike itself. I don't see it as being a big deal. I'm not sure how much political value they get out of it, but I've seen a lot of these announcements over the last 6 months. So.
Kathy, what's your take on any kind of a message being read into this move? Or is it as simple as streamlining services and preventing election fraud as the Premier has stated?
Well, you said it when you said what's being read into it. There's a lot that's being read into it. If you go on social media, there's a tremendous amount that from the very far right fringe. They're saying this is part of the World Economic Forum's plan that we all have digital identification numbers. And there's on the far left, people are saying this is she's going to cut all social services to non-citizens. There's issues about privacy, which I think are realistic. Issues about privacy that are also being read into it. I mean, really, you use that ID, your basic driver's license, all the time. I just, had to buy something the other day at a store. I have a loyalty card. They asked to see my driver's license to make sure that my name was the same as on the loyalty card. Do I want that clerk to know whether I'm a citizen or not? None of their business, really. Same thing, do you want to show it to the bouncer? Do you want to show it to at the local watering hole? Do you want to show it to the clerk at the liquor store? Really, there's a lot of people who are going to know whether you're a citizen that really don't need to know. And can the government absolutely guarantee that that won't lead to some discrimination? No, they can't, because it's going to be used so universally, quite literally. They can't guarantee that you're not going to be treated differently because you're not a Canadian. So there's lots of things being read into it. It's more tinkering for the sake of tinkering, more virtue signaling. Frankly, it just seems a hassle. And it seems like way more red tape for a lot of people. For instance, if you are a non-citizen, you're going to have the driver's license without your marker on it. And then a year later, you get your citizenship. You have to go back and get another license to have the marker on it before you can vote. So, really, who's this helping?
All right. For us, one more topic, and that is the approaching finish line for the Alberta Next series of town halls. The latest happening Monday evening in Airdrie.
Do any members of the panel, considering both the positives and negatives, feel that the province should not proceed with any of the proposed policies, or is the panel only interested in pushing a one-sided predetermined outcome?
Airdrie, the 8th of 10 stops for the Alberta Next panel, gauging public perceptions about Alberta's relationship with Ottawa ahead of the government putting forward possible referendum questions next year. Kathy, it was a packed town hall in Airdrie, apparently lined up out the door with 150 or so others waiting outside watching a TV of the proceedings. Described as another friendly audience, even though there was the degree of pushback on proposals, as we just heard in the clip. To what degree do you see this whole process serving to advance the government's agenda? Is it something the UCP can hail as a success?
Well, they're going to try and do that. Absolutely. I mean, I think there's been tons of criticism about where they've chosen to do it. Obviously, in places where they don't hold sway electorally, they have not had quite such an easy ride as in Airdrie, which is very conservative. And so that certainly is a bit of a marker. But they are going to say everyone that we talked to just loved it. And everyone who came out are so happy with our proposals. It's a talking point for them. How much information are they getting out of it? I don't think much. They probably got more from the surveys than they are from these meetings. Somebody who's going to come out and confirm their agenda doesn't really help them that much. So is it a waste of time? Maybe it is if you're doing this over and over again, only in friendly territory.
Barry, the crowd in Airdrie said to have, for the most part, been cheering for separation. And a former premier in the news this week opining on the sovereignty debate, stating a small minority, this being Jason Kenney, that a small minority should not be able to push a separatist agenda that it impacts everyone. What's to be made of Kenney weighing in at this point?
Well, it's always intriguing watching Jason Kenney weigh in on anything because we're never quite sure where he's going to appear. And I would say strategically, it certainly sets himself up for, the opportunity to come back into politics, potentially on the federal level at some point, setting himself up as a defender of Canada. And I believe that there's a real sentiment there, but certainly Mr. Kenney has not done too many things that aren't political. I think in terms of how he views this particular issue around the separation issue, I mean, he dealt with it in his time. I mean, that faction of the party ultimately led to his demise at the end of the day. So I think he has a personal bone to pick there, too, as well.
Kathy, maybe 45 seconds left. How much weight do you see Jason Kenney's voice carrying, and how the sovereignty debate plays out?
I think only political watchers are really paying much attention to Jason Kenney, honestly, and the fact that he's talking about the referendum question itself actually being something that's going to tear families apart. People already know where you stand one way or the other. I don't think that just voting in the referendum one way or the other is going to have that kind of an effect, and it might just sort of settle things down. So, I think Jason Kenney likes to have a say, and now he's having it.
Yeah, and real quick, Kathy, might this be the window for Jason Kenney to make a return?
Well, he says never say never. He says right now he doesn't see that that's his place to be. I think he's having more fun, frankly, shooting from the sidelines.
All right. We'll leave it there. Great to see you both. Thank you kindly for this.
Thanks, Michael.